October 11th, 1942. Rear Admiral Norman Goto stands on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Alba, leading a 5-ship force through the waters north of Guadalcanal. His mission is simple: bombard Henderson Field, deliver supplies, and reinforce the island garrison. Japanese naval dominance in these waters is absolute. In 9 months of Pacific warfare, Japanese night-fighting doctrine has crushed every Allied force foolish enough to challenge them after dark. Their superior optics, rigorous training, and Type 93 long-lance torpedoes have turned the Solomons into an American graveyard. Goto's confidence isn't arrogance, it's experience. 3 months earlier at Savo Island, Japanese cruisers annihilated an Allied force, sinking 4 heavy cruisers in 32 minutes without losing a single ship. American radar is a known quantity, easily deceived. American night tactics are timid, defensive, predictable. As Alba cuts through the darkness at 26 knots, Goto has no reason to believe tonight will be different. He's about to discover that the U.S. Navy learns fast, and rage is an excellent teacher. The Americans waiting for him off Cape Esperance have studied Savo Island like a trauma surgeon examining autopsy photos. Rear Admiral Norman Scott commands Task Force 64, 4 cruisers and 5 destroyers configured specifically to challenge Japanese night supremacy. His flagship, the heavy cruiser San Francisco, carries new SG surface search radar that can detect ships at 15 miles. More importantly, Scott has drilled his force relentlessly in a tactic the Japanese consider beneath them: crossing the enemy's T, the classic naval maneuver where you rake the enemy's bow to stern line with your full broadside while they can only fire forward guns. The Japanese Navy, drunk on offensive spirit and torpedo-first doctrine, views such defensive positioning as cowardly. Scott is counting on that contempt. His crews have practiced radar-guided gunnery, coordinated illumination, and disciplined fire control. They've absorbed the Savo Island lessons: maintain formation, trust your technology, strike first with overwhelming violence. At 23:25 hours, San Francisco's SG radar paints contacts bearing 310 degrees, range 14,000 yards. Goto's force, steaming in single file, appears on the scope as a perfect target array. Scott's destroyer, Duncan, positioned at the head of the American column, picks up the contact simultaneously. Her captain, Lieutenant Commander Edmund Taylor, makes a decision that nearly derails the entire engagement. He breaks formation, charging ahead to launch torpedoes independently. The American line begins to curl, threatening to dissolve the perfect crossing position Scott has maneuvered for 90 minutes to achieve. On San Francisco's bridge, Scott faces the same doubt that paralyzed Allied commanders at Savo Island. Are these contacts enemy or friendly? At 23:32 hours, he demands confirmation. Visual identification is impossible in the darkness. The radar returns are unmistakable, but the consequences of firing on your own ships are career-ending. Goto has no such doubts. His lookouts still haven't spotted the American column crossing his path at 5,000 yards. Japanese night optics are superior, but tonight they're scanning the wrong sector, fixated on Savo Island's coastline where they expect shore batteries, not a battle line perpendicular to their course. At 23:46 hours, Scott's patience expires. Commence firing. 6-inch and 8-inch guns erupt across a 2-mile line. Star shells burst over Goto's column, turning night into searing white phosphorescence. The Japanese formation, caught in perfect enfilade, explodes. San Francisco and Boise hammer Aoba's superstructure. Salt Lake City and Helena shred the destroyer Fubuki. The heavy cruiser Furutaka, third in Goto's line, takes 15 direct hits in the first 90 seconds. On Aoba's bridge, Goto stares at the wall of fire materializing from nowhere. His last words, recorded by a surviving officer, are a bewildered question: what ship is shooting? An 8-inch shell decapitates him mid-sentence, tearing through the compass platform and killing his entire command staff. Aoba, bridge ablaze, captain dead, fire control destroyed, staggers out of formation. The flagship has been neutralized in less than 2 minutes. The American gunnery is surgical and savage. Helena, equipped with the most advanced fire control system in the fleet, is pumping out 12 6-inch rounds every 20 seconds, her 15-gun broadside functioning as a rapid-fire execution machine. Each salvo is radar-directed, falling with metronome precision. Furutaka is dying. 37 hits have obliterated her engineering spaces, ruptured fuel lines, and started uncontrollable fires. At 23:58 hours, her captain orders abandon ship. She will sink at 02:28 hours with 258 men still aboard. Fubuki, the destroyer leading Goto's column, has simply ceased to exist as a fighting unit. American destroyers and cruisers converge fire on her, and she explodes at 23:54 hours, breaking in half. 73 survivors cling to wreckage in water lit by burning oil. The Japanese expect American hesitation, cautious maneuvering, defensive posture. Instead, they're experiencing an industrial-scale gun drill, executed with cold fury. But Scott's triumph is fragmenting. The destroyer Duncan, whose premature charge disrupted the formation, is now caught in crossfire. American gunners, following orders to destroy anything crossing their sights, blast her superstructure. Simultaneously, the Japanese destroyer Hatsuyuki, firing wildly, puts a torpedo into Duncan's hull. She's being killed by both sides. Her captain beaches her on Savo Island at 0200 hours. She sinks an hour later with 48 dead. The fog of war, so carefully managed by Scott's pre-battle planning, is reasserting itself. The American formation, once a perfect killing line, is dissolving into individual duels as ships lose visual contact in smoke and darkness. The heavy cruiser Boise, aggressively pursuing damaged Japanese units, charges straight into the cruiser Kinugasa's firing solution. At 00:06 hours, Kinugasa's forward turrets open fire at 4,000 yards. 3 8-inch shells penetrate Boise's forward magazines. The ready ammunition ignites in a fireball that shoots 200 feet above her foremast. 107 men die instantly. Boise, seconds from catastrophic explosion, is saved by flooding from a fourth shell hit that drowns the fires before they reach the main magazine. She limps away trailing flames, her forward third a charred ruin. Salt Lake City moves to cover Boise's retreat and encounters Kinugasa at point-blank range. The two heavy cruisers trade salvos in a brawl so close their muzzle flashes illuminate each other's decks. Kinugasa takes 11 hits, losing her forward turret and fire control. Salt Lake City absorbs 4 shells that kill 25 men and start major fires. But Kinugasa's captain, Commander Masao Sawa, has recognized the tactical reality. His force is shattered, his flagship dead, his destroyers scattered. At 00:16 hours, he orders retreat. The Japanese withdrawal is chaotic and desperate. Kinugasa and Aba, both burning and trailing oil, race northwest at 28 knots. The destroyer Hatsuyuki, her deck loaded with 280 troops intended for Guadalcanal, jettisons soldiers into the ocean to gain speed. Men in full combat gear plunge into darkness, drowning to lighten ship. It's a nightmare inversion of Japanese expectations, their forces fleeing, abandoning mission objectives, dumping cargo to survive. Scott orders pursuit, but his formation is too disrupted, his ships too scattered. Boise is crippled, Duncan is sinking, ammunition is critically low after the furious opening barrage. At 00:25 hours, he breaks off. The midnight waters off Cape Esperance fall silent, except for the screams of men in burning oil. The butcher's bill is ugly on both sides, but the strategic calculus is devastating for Japan. Fubuki, sunk. Furutaka, sunk. Aoba, 40% casualties, flagship status terminated, 8 months of repairs. Kinugasa, heavy damage, combat ineffective. Total Japanese dead, 654. Mission failure, complete. Henderson Field remains operational. No supplies delivered, no reinforcements landed. The Americans lose Duncan and suffer 16-3 dead, but they've accomplished something the Japanese believed impossible. They've beaten the Imperial Navy at night in close combat, using tactics Japan considers their exclusive domain. In Tokyo, naval staff officers review Goto's final radio transmissions and the fragmentary action reports from surviving ships. The assessments are clinical and damning. The Americans displayed superior radar coordination, disciplined fire control, and tactical aggression that contradicted every intelligence estimate. The myth of untouchable Japanese night superiority, forged at Savo Island and Pearl Harbor, has been shattered by 6-inch guns and an admiral willing to trust his technology. 3 weeks later, at the naval battle of Guadalcanal, the Americans will push further into the night fighting arena. 5 weeks after that, at Tassafaronga, the pendulum will swing again. But the psychological wound is permanent. Cape Esperance proved that American forces can learn, adapt, and execute, that technological advantage paired with institutional determination can overcome doctrine and experience. The Imperial Navy's officer corps, raised on supremacy narratives, must now plan operations knowing that darkness no longer guarantees victory. Aoba returns to Truk on October 17th, her bridge a burned-out shell, Goto's blood still staining the deck plating where his headless body fell. Her crew buries 79 shipmates at sea during the transit. In repair docks, welders cut away twisted metal, while intelligence officers draft reports explaining how a textbook bombardment mission became a massacre. The answer is simpler than they want to admit. They assumed American incompetence was permanent. At Cape Esperance, Norman Scott demonstrated that underestimation has a price. The Imperial Navy paid in full, 654 lives, 2 ships, and the certainty that ruled their doctrine. For an empire built on decisive battle mythology, it was a preview of industrial reality. The Japanese Navy entered Cape Esperance expecting another Savo Island. They left with shattered ships and a shattered assumption that American forces couldn't match them in the dark. Norman Scott's task force proved that technology, training, and tactical discipline could overcome doctrine written in arrogance. If you want more stories of underestimation meeting brutal reality, subscribe and hit notifications.